Let's talk about Meghan Markle. Yep, she's trending again. And this time, it's not about the royals, her podcast, or a surprise interview. It's about something that, at first glance, seemed totally harmless. A video. Just a 30-second Instagram clip that spiraled out of control faster than anyone could have predicted. And honestly, nobody saw this coming.
That baby mama, she gon' put it on you. She gon' do that baby mama. Drop it down, drop it down low. Drop it down, drop it down low. Drop it down low. Do that baby mama when I step out on the top.
No caption, no build-up, just Meghan dancing awkwardly to old-school hip-hop, supposedly from a few years back when she was pregnant. You'd think it would be endearing, right? A little throwback moment for her followers? Well, the internet had other plans. What Meghan probably hoped would be seen as playful and nostalgic quickly turned into a social media storm. She wasn't twerking or doing anything wild, just moving around to the beat in a laid-back outfit.
I'ma make some money, buy some huggies from the style. S to the T-A, double R-K, to the E-I-S-H-A. And I don't play, doing my way. Prego, but I'm still doing moves like Beyonce, yeah.
But that didn't stop the flood of commentary. Some called it attention-seeking. Others labeled it out of touch. Most people just cringed. This wasn't just a case of wrong place, wrong time. This was a situation where someone with a highly curated public image did something that felt completely out of step with how the world currently sees them. Meghan wasn't just posting as a private citizen. She was doing it as a celebrity tied to major media contracts, a former royal still trying to define her identity, and a controversial figure in the public eye. The video wasn't received in a vacuum. It became a symbol of something bigger. And the blowback was instant. Within hours, the clip had spread like wildfire across every platform imaginable: Twitter, TikTok, Instagram Reels, Reddit threads. And it was just the beginning of the chaos. My name is Lola. The internet didn't just react, it erupted. People weren't just laughing at the video. They were dissecting it like a cultural artifact. Twitter lit up with hot takes. TikTok creators started remixing the clip with auto-tuned soundtracks, fake voiceovers, and exaggerated reenactments. On Reddit, discussion threads ballooned into debates about whether Meghan was being unfairly targeted or just massively out of touch. It was like the video became a mirror for how people felt about her, and that ruffle. To make things worse, the algorithm picked it up like wildfire. Every major social platform served it up on users' feeds, and each new viewer added another layer of snark. Suddenly, Meghan wasn't the empowering feminist icon from her Oprah interview. She was the lady dancing badly in her living room. The memes hit hard. One TikTok had her edited into a 90s music video with flashing text that read, "Moments before the Netflix deal died." Another added circus music to her moves. People weren't pee. What's wild is how fast it went from quirky to controversial. In less than 24 hours, what could have been just a weird footnote in Meghan's digital diary became a viral firestorm. And while celebrities post strange things all the time, Meghan isn't just any celebrity. Every move she makes is scrutinized. Every post is a headline. This wasn't just a cringy video. It was a perceived misstep in a carefully constructed public persona. And it opened the floodgates for backlash that no one, not even her. Some fans defended her, calling the outrage misplaced. But even the loudest voices in her corner struggled to justify it. The vibe had shifted, and it wasn't shifting back anytime soon. While the internet laughed, Netflix was fuming. Meghan wasn't just some random influencer. She was a high-profile partner with a multi-million-dollar deal on the line. And that little Instagram video, it was throwing a wrench into everything they were building. The docuseries with Love, Meghan was still in development, and Netflix had invested heavily in promoting her as a thoughtful, emotionally intelligent voice. They were betting on Meghan the activist, Meghan the mother, Meghan the narrato. Executives at Netflix reportedly called an emergency meeting the day the video went viral. Emails were blasted. Phone calls flew back and forth. The message was clear. This was a disaster. Greg Peters, Netflix's co-CEO, had been one of Meghan's biggest supporters in the early stages. But now, he was furious. He reportedly saw the video as a liability, not just a distraction, but something that could actively harm the brand. It wasn't edgy or cool. It was off-brand and borderline embarrassing. From a business standpoint, Netflix was in a bind. Meghan was under contract, and technically, she hadn't violated any legal terms. But from a brand perspective, the damage was done. They had sold her as a serious figure, someone who brought depth and emotion to every frame. And now she was trending for something that looked like a TikTok dare. Internally, Netflix started asking hard questions. How do we rein her in without creating an even bigger controversy? Could this spiral into another PR disaster like past Hollywood implosions? And most importantly, was Meghan Markle still worth the risk? The consensus was grim. If she couldn't be trusted to post responsibly, how could they trust her with a message as delicate as motherhood and personal growth? The clock was ticking, and Netflix wasn't going to wait long for answers. So, what did Meghan do after the Netflix brass asked her to pull the video? She refused. Flat out, no hesitation, no compromise. She told them this was her form of personal expression, her way of reclaiming her narrative after years of public scrutiny and judgment. According to sources, she even framed it as a feminist act, a woman choosing to express joy on her own terms. But Netflix didn't see empowerment. They saw a fire they couldn't put out. This wasn't just defiance. It was defiance in the face of a partner footing the bill for a massive media project. Meghan doubled down, reportedly telling executives that she wouldn't be bullied into sanitizing her image for corporate comfort. She made it clear she wouldn't be silenced. To her, taking down the video would be the same as admitting she had done something wrong, and she wasn't about to do that. But standing your ground only works when the ground isn't crumbling beneath your feet. Netflix hit back with a direct warning. They told her in no uncertain terms, "This is your final strike." One more slip-up and they'd start pulling back. Not just future deals, but current projects too. The platform had already endured heat over other star-driven controversies. They weren't about to let Meghan turn into another headline nightmare. Still, Meghan didn't blink. She believed she was right. She believed the audience would come around. That once people heard her explain the intent behind the video, they'd get it. She underestimated how unforgiving the public and the industry can be when timing, tone, and optics go sideways. And Netflix? They weren't waiting around for an apology. They were already moving into damage control mode. The consequences came fast and brutal. Within days, Netflix started canceling Meghan's promotional plans. The entire rollout strategy for With Love, Meghan was suddenly put on ice. She had prepped behind-the-scenes content, interviews, even scheduled Q&A sessions with fans. All of it gone. No explanation. No rescheduling. Just radio silence. The decision was made. Meghan's platform was no longer going to be used to amplify her voice. And it didn't stop there. Meghan had requested a seat in the editing room for her docuseries. She wanted to shape the message, fine-tune how she was portrayed. That access was revoked. Netflix informed her team that she would no longer be involved in the post-production process. They were taking full control of the final cut, and that was non-negotiable. Internally, the term being tossed around was containment. The goal wasn't to punish Meghan outright. It was to mitigate the fallout without adding more fuel to the fire. But from Meghan's point of view, it felt like a betrayal. She thought she had earned the trust to tell her own story. Instead, she found herself on the outside looking in, locked out of a narrative she once had control over. Executives wanted to avoid turning this into a spectacle, but the silence spoke volumes. The move to sideline Meghan was a clear message. The brand mattered more than the personality. They weren't trying to salvage Meghan's image anymore. They were trying to protect their own. The dance video may have been short, but the ripple effect was massive. And Meghan? She was just beginning to understand how deep the damage really was. Up until this point, Meghan still had a few allies within Netflix, executives who believed in her brand, producers who had gone to bat for her, and marketing leads who genuinely thought her story mattered. But once the fallout began, those voices started to fade. People stopped responding to emails. Meetings got quietly pulled off calendars. It was the corporate version of being ghosted. Greg Peters, once a vocal advocate, was now reportedly avoiding direct communication. Another senior executive was overheard saying she's becoming more of a liability than an asset. That line spread like wildfire through industry circles. Meghan's inner circle within Netflix wasn't just shrinking, it was collapsing. The vibe in Hollywood is always built on momentum. Once you're seen as a rising star, doors open everywhere. But when the narrative shifts and people start whispering about unpredictability, egos, and brand risk, doors slam shut just as fast. Meghan had always been a polarizing figure, but this was different. This time, the people who were supposed to have her back were walking away. Producers began distancing themselves from the project. Some internally requested not to be associated with the docuseries when credits were finalized. Publicists went quiet. Even her own PR team reportedly started advising her to take a step back, to regroup. But Meghan wasn't hearing any of it. She felt cornered, misunderstood. Her instincts told her to push back even harder. But the louder she got, the quieter the room became. Silence can be deafening, especially when it comes from the people you thought were in your corner. The entertainment industry has a long memory and an even longer email chain. As the Meghan Markle drama unfolded, other studios, agencies, and potential collaborators took notice. And what they saw made them nervous. Talent agencies started quietly advising clients to stay away from anything linked to her. Not forever, but definitely for now. It was too risky, too unpredictable. One well-known agency even circulated an internal memo flagging Meghan as a potential public relations hazard. That's the kind of classification typically reserved for people going through high-profile scandals, not former royals with media dreams. The memo didn't say she was untouchable. It just said, not right now. Let it cool. Production companies also took a step back. Projects that once had Meghan's name floating around in development meetings started disappearing from whiteboards. Suddenly, she wasn't being pitched as a lead voice or creative force. She was being filed under pending. This shift wasn't about dislike. It was about optics. Nobody wanted to appear aligned with a media figure in freefall. Meghan was radioactive, not because of a crime or scandal, but because her brand had become synonymous with unpredictability and controversy. That's the one thing corporate America can't market. The irony? She had always talked about reclaiming her narrative, but now that narrative was being written without her. And it wasn't flattering. In Hollywood, timing is everything. And Meghan's clock was running out. Fast. Even Meghan's most loyal fans started to hesitate. Her social media pages, usually flooded with heart emojis and affirmations, began to fill with something different: questions. Comments like, "This wasn't the best move," and "I love Meghan, but what was that?" started popping up. These weren't trolls. These were longtime supporters. And they were confused. The backlash had evolved. It wasn't just about the video anymore. It was about her judgment, her sense of timing, her refusal to acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the moment to be edgy. And the longer the video stayed up, the worse it got. TikTok creators kept remixing it. Some added laugh tracks. Others edited it into fake music videos. The dancing wasn't the story anymore, it was the punchline. Every repost chipped away at her credibility. What she thought would show joy and freedom had become a source of mockery. In a way, Meghan lost control of her own image. She had always worked hard to present herself a certain way. Elegant, thoughtful, powerful. But this time, the internet took the reins. And it didn't paint her in the light she was hoping for. Once the online crowd turns, it's hard to win them back. And for Meghan, the turn had happened. Quietly, steadily, and publicly. The narrative had shifted. The audience that once saw her as a voice of reason and resistance now saw her as confused and possibly self-sabotaging. She didn't just lose momentum, she lost trust. Behind closed doors, Netflix was executing its own version of a quiet exit strategy. No press releases, no statements, just silence. The kind of corporate silence that speaks louder than any tweet. Meetings involving Meghan's name were canceled. Creative teams were told to reframe promotional strategies. In plain English, erase her name from the spotlight. Slack channels lit up with internal jokes like the Meghan mess, a phrase that stuck. It was harsh, but it captured the mood. People weren't angry anymore. They were just exhausted. The initial excitement around working with Meghan had turned into a logistical nightmare. Every time her name came up, it brought drama. Eventually, Netflix decided to bury with love Meghan. No premiere, no media rollout, no trailer drops. They dropped it quietly on the platform with minimal push, hoping that the controversy wouldn't follow. And for the most part, it didn't. The industry had moved on to other headlines. Internally, though, the damage was done. Executives made a decision. There would be no future projects with Meghan. No spin-offs. No sequels. Not unless something drastic changed. Even Ted Sarandos, the usually reserved Netflix CEO, reportedly signed off on the retreat strategy. It was time to cut their losses. In the entertainment business, when your name disappears from the conversation, it's usually not a coincidence. It's a choice. And in Meghan's case, that choice was deliberate. She hadn't just burned a bridge. She torched an entire lane. In the weeks that followed, Meghan tried to rebuild the narrative. She posted cryptic quotes about resilience and staying true to yourself. She hinted at launching her own media platform, something bold, independent, and free from corporate restrictions. But nothing concrete materialized. Investors weren't biting. Industry insiders saw it as too risky. And the public? They weren't exactly begging for a comeback. Her inner circle continued to shrink. Friends who once defended her publicly now stayed quiet. Former allies disappeared from her social feed. Publicists began to focus on low-visibility strategies, which is PR speak for lay low and wait it out. Even her husband Prince Harry reportedly urged her to reconsider some decisions, but ultimately left it up to her. By the time With Love, Meghan actually dropped, it came and went without much noise. Viewership was modest. Reviews were lukewarm. Critics called it meandering and tone-deaf. Audiences didn't stick around. What was supposed to be a landmark series felt more like a forgotten upload. And Meghan, for once, wasn't dominating the conversation. The saddest part? She got the attention she wanted, but not the kind that builds empires. It was the kind that trends for 2 days and then disappears. For someone who once had the world's eyes on her every move, that kind of irrelevance is a harsh reality check. In Hollywood, you're either rising or falling. There's rarely an in-between. And Meghan's fall wasn't dramatic or explosive. It was quiet, awkward, and above all, avoidable. But in the world of fame, sometimes silence is the loudest ending of all. There's something fascinating about watching a public image unravel in real time. Meghan's story wasn't supposed to go like this. She had the ingredients for a media empire, global name recognition, a compelling backstory, a partner with just as much star power. She had the platform, the press, the partnerships. But what she didn't have, it turns out, was restraint. This whole saga over a single video exposed something deeper. A tension between authenticity and brand management, between wanting to be real and needing to be strategic. Meghan tried to walk that line and slipped. Hard. People don't just consume content anymore. They interpret it, analyze it, react instantly. And when you're famous, your content becomes a referendum on everything you stand for. A dance video might seem small, even silly. But in the world Meghan occupies, nothing is small. Every gesture gets turned into a headline. Every moment is part of the larger story. And that's what Meghan lost control of, the story. The narrative she spent years building came undone in 30 seconds. Not because of the dancing itself, but because of what it symbolized. Impulse, inconsistency, a lack of awareness of how she's perceived. That's the part that shook people. Even now, Meghan hasn't issued a formal explanation or walked anything back. And maybe that's her choice. Maybe she believes silence is power. Or maybe she's hoping people just move on. But the industry doesn't forget. Hollywood remembers who brings value and who brings chaos. Her next move will matter more than ever. Will she pivot? Will she retreat? Or will she double down again? One thing's for sure. Everyone will be watching. Not with admiration, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Because Meghan Markle's next chapter hasn't been written yet. But the world is holding its breath, waiting to see if she can finally turn the page. Or if the story's already over. For now, the spotlight has dimmed. The tabloids have moved on to newer controversies, the TikTok jokes have stopped trending, and the internet's short attention span has, for once, worked in Meghan's favor. But the industry hasn't forgotten. They never do. Meghan's path forward won't be easy. The foundation she once stood on now feels shaky. Rebuilding trust with the public and the media world will take more than quotes and curated posts. It'll take a real pivot. And maybe, just maybe, a little humility. Only time will tell if she's ready for that.